Hi everyone, I'm Gina and I'm a licensed therapist who got fed up with therapy. This is a one-woman show about my journey of finding the spaces between non-traditional approaches of healing. What I learned is that there's no one right way to heal, and you truly are your best resource. Therapists and healers are meant to support you on your path, but they don't have all of the answers. You do. This show is about the spaces between laughter, tears, thoughts, ego, soul, messy growth, and moments of joy. It's about personal liberation, inner knowing, and the tools that get you there. I will cover topics that make many of us uncomfortable and interviewing people who are willing to go there. I've spent thousands of hours listening to human beings navigate their life story, from rehabs in Malibu to homeless shelters in East LA, and now my private practice. It has been some of the most profound, painful, and beautiful moments in my life. Thank you so much for joining me. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Spaces Between. It has been a while, and part of that was I recently turned 40. And after my 40th birthday, I needed some time to self-reflect, go a little bit internal, take some silence and space. So technology, podcasting, and social media has been out of my life for over a month and has felt really good. So sharing that with you, because just a reminder about how good it is to honor our needs in life when we need to. On to today's show, one of my best friends and soul sisters is joining us again, Eulalie Cizek, who recently returned from her first 2-day ceremony with Ayahuasca. If you listened to the episode before, which I highly recommend before listening to this one, Lee and I covered a lot of themes. Those themes included self-abandonment, intergenerational trauma, commitment to being honest with yourself and others, and how terrifying that can be. Stepping into your deepest truth. Also, the balance of just being and sitting with yourself instead of seeking and doing all of the time in regards to healing. Lee and I went back and forth about the question of how do we really heal as humans? And what we came to is that there is no one way or right way to heal. It is truly up to the individual and what they are called to do on their path. So Lee describes in this episode how she was called to sit with ayahuasca. After years of traditional therapy, seeing healers and intuitives, she was ready to sit. So on a side note, I'd like to say that this episode is in no way promoting that you do ayahuasca. It is a profound medicine that has healed many, but it is not to be taken lightly and deeply respected. On a very last note, I'd like to share that I will be starting to run my women's groups beginning on November 10th in the evening around 6:30 p.m. And we will be covering all things. And what we'll really be covering is power and powerlessness, self-abandonment, integrity, self-compassion, and authenticity, and also our relationship to our sexuality and our bodies. If you have interest in joining me, and I hope you do, please email me at gnminardi81@gmail.com. Thanks so much for joining today. I have so much gratitude for every time you guys take a journey with me. Hello, my dearest Eulalie. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Gina.
Hi. So let's just dive in. Let's dive into, I'm hoping that everybody that listens to this listens to the episode before, because I think it's really kind of the precursor to what you and I are going to talk about today. And I think so much of the theme is really stepping into your truth. So let's just talk about what your 2 days of ceremony was for you.
Okay. So I think when we left off, I was kind of in this space of like, I just feel like this is the big bang for me. Like I need something drastic because I'm really good at hiding from myself. And I'm good at hiding from myself because I have acquired so many healing tools that can be used theoretically. And, you can think you're doing all the work, but you're not feeling the work, or it might not be in your heart. And I don't know how to say other than like the moving into your heart space is the only space you can be in for actual healing, for true healing. It's not something you do with your mind. It's letting go of your mind. It might even be losing your mind, which I was open to going into this ceremony. So I went to sit with ayahuasca for 2 days. And I didn't know very much about the ceremony or the ceremonial process. I really not that I hadn't thought about that part, but I, hadn't really considered how, when going to do something like this medicine, there is, the ceremony is such a necessary component. It's like going to church. So, it's a place of worship. It's a place of reverence, but ultimately it is a place of surrender. And I think the aspect of ceremony and you calling in all of, the four corners of the earth and the different elements, and offering yourself over to this space, and giving reverence, like true gratitude, and asking for true help, truly going in and going, I am asking for guidance, and I am willing to put, myself completely into that space of surrender for that guidance. And I think that's ultimately what, as far as any kind of healing goes, like, especially, it's hard. I don't want to equate it to like religion, but, when you think about religion, for example, it's this, they like Christianity, you offer your soul over to Christ, or, so on. And I guess what I kind of would like to, like, I don't know, the simile here for me is just that level of surrender. And when, you start this process, and, there's a lot of communication before the ceremony, and they really, like, you really get the awareness that, like, this is no joke. You're going to meet God. That is honestly kind of terrifying.
Yeah, of course.
Because I don't know, especially, I know, in our friendship, we've discussed a lot, there's a lot of spirituality within my own personal practice, within your practice, within, and there's different ways of communing with, with spirit, with the earth, with, mindfulness, breathing, so many things. But all of that, every tool that I have ever learned came into practice. It's like the beauty of this ceremony, and the beginning part, and it opens with, sort of a conversation and a speech and this gratitude and reverence. And there's a lot of, staged offerings, like there's, healing tobacco and medicinal tobacco, I guess is what you would call it. And, they bless everything, and they bless you, and there's cedar chips burning and things. And so you really do become really absorbed in your space. When you finally go to take your cup, you sit and you drink it, and you're, in that space, your cup's blessed, you're blessed, and you go sit down, and then there's absolute silence, and nobody speaks for a period of time, which tends to be around, I guess, 45 minutes to an hour, until the medicine sort of starts to come on. And you have a lot of time in that space for meditating. Like there's, you're there, and truly that is your opportunity. That's your time to surrender. That's your time to, ask for that guidance and to say you're really open to whatever. But not gonna lie, I was like scared shitless. I don't know. And you and I discussed this a little bit, perhaps just in a conversation, not on the last podcast, but there's a lot of discussion, if for people out there who don't know about ayahuasca, but like how you have to introduce yourself to the grandmother, and it's sort of like meeting a queen. You're like meeting, or like your great grandmother, or your like grandmother. It's somebody who's very regal, who's very important, who knows a fuck ton more than you do, and you're there with the utmost respect. So it is truly about just, it's like you're kneeling, you're sitting up straight, there's a lot of conversation around like really sitting up straight and offering yourself and introducing yourself. Hello, I'm Eulalie. I've come here, to surrender myself to this healing, and I am asking for your guidance and help in doing so. And that's, as you're sitting in that space for that period of time, it's like, for me personally, there was a lot of fear of the unknown, and the unknown being like, I don't know anything about this medicine going into it truly. And I don't know what it's going to show me. And I don't even know, as much as we think we know all of the interior of ourselves, we are like endless caverns, and they are filled with experience, with memory held, things that aren't accessed on your daily, memory from dreams, memory from perhaps past lives. I mean, it's infinite what we hold within our beings, our bodies. And that's sort of a trip when you're sitting there going, I am open to anything, but kind of, I don't know, we have a lot in us. Yeah. So that beginning part of the ceremony truly was, just turning myself inside out and having to just go, I'm in, I'm at the mercy of you. Mm-hmm. And then after about 45 minutes, you start to hear this like noise. And it's this like, little shaky stick. I'm sure there's, seriously, I wish I'd written down everything that I saw and learned, and I didn't. But it's hard because you see so much that you're like, what was the name of that thing? But anyway, so that you start to hear that. And then the woman who led this, the shaman, she starts to sing. And that sort of evokes, it's like when she feels the medicine start to become present within the space. And she evokes, and you're told to follow the song, because the songs are also spirits and they guide you to where you need to go. And that in itself is so beautiful. Like that in itself will bring you to tears, because there's just these ancient songs that are Amazonian and, have been around forever, and they tell stories that in a different language that I don't know, but you understand in a weird way.
I get that.
And that sort of is the beginning. I'm going to open up my journal so that I can just stay in alignment with even myself.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I guess the beginning part for me was really showing me myself objectively, and looking at who I thought I was and who I see myself as. And she kind of showed me myself as this like wild, unruly gypsy spirit, this old, and she showed it to me in a picturesque sort of way, like zoomed in to a scene of this like I want to say like Eastern European, probably a couple hundred years ago, romping around in some crazy outfit. I was definitely a prostitute in the scene, which is hilarious, but not really, you know. And again, there's this like incredible space of no judgment.
Yeah.
There's no like, everything is so objective and you see it just plainly. It's like watching a film, or for me it was anyway. And I want to be really clear, like, this is my experience and what I saw and how it was shown to me. I'm sure that, you know, everybody has their own way of seeing. And I believe that how you are shown things is how you see. I think I see in, well, this was very romantic. I'm like on a hillside next to my caravan, you know, and I just got the, you know, awareness of how I was sort of wild and free, but untamable. Basically, it was, I have it written here. It says so much. It was so much about it was learning to stand in my own power, learning truly how to choose me, and needing to make the choice of this life, which was very painful. Yesterday, of choosing to release my attachments to other beings, being shown that. Wow, I would jump right into that, but it was really being shown where my attachments lied, and specifically for some reason in that lifetime, like it showed my soul within that. And I want to kind of jump back to what we had talked about in the last podcast, because I had felt like I had been sort of operating in a, you know, just in the same way over and over, like gone through life sort of without, I don't want to say without direction, but it's not that. It's that, you know, relationship wise. And that was really my focus, I suppose, going into this ceremony, unconsciously or consciously. I, you know, had been really struggling within my romantic relationships. And felt like I had been repeating patterns for a really long time, and that I didn't really know why. Like I couldn't see clearly as to why I was making the same choices, or, you know, and having similar results, and leaving and starting over and doing it again. And so I think that's why she showed me this specific life. I need to.
Yeah. Take a breather. Well, let's go into standing in your power. I mean, there's some key things that you just said to me. Choosing me, and standing in your power, and releasing your attachment to other beings, and also repeating patterns. So interestingly enough, I think this all connects to the first podcast or the first episode that you and I did together. So I guess a question that's coming up for me is, if somebody was not interested in doing ayahuasca, and if I'm to segue just for a moment, and just couldn't get to the root of the repetition of their patterns, or as I've heard many of my clients say to me, I don't understand why I choose unavailable partners, or I don't understand why I stayed with this person who was so toxic and actually made me feel disgusting to be with this person, but I continued. And of course, from my psychological perspective, but I always go back to inner child wounds and sort of what's stored in the subconscious mind, and potentially past lives, which, you know. So do you feel now that experiencing and seeing yourself as this gypsy woman, do you feel like that illumination, what do I want to say with this? Because do you feel like there was an inner knowing in you that already knew that to some degree?
So how it was, I mean, Yes, because I throughout my life have kind of experienced this dichotomy of I am this like wild, free spirit, and then I am like I'm a mother, I'm a nurturer, I'm a caretaker. There's the two don't always coexist very well within my being. I would be like, give me few weeks alone with my children and I'm like, I just want some reckless abandonment. I'm like, I need a night out, and it's like, but I think I felt that maybe more strongly than somebody would. I was like, this doesn't align with my soul. I don't know what I'm doing. Why did I become a mother? I would like I would question so much in my own life, and that would happen in relationship too, where I was, perfectly happy, but also at odds with myself, at odds within, almost like I was like an instigation of troublemaking. Like I'm going to be naughty, and this idea of it, even if I wasn't to act on it and, really did, but like, it's not about it's the fact that I knew it was present, that I felt like at odds with myself for so long. And when it was shown to me as if this was a past life that had come into, and I was born, like I was that being, but born into this body and this soul, in this time, and that wasn't my life anymore. Yeah. So I hadn't accepted it, or I hadn't seen it, or I just didn't know, why I had felt that way. And again, I don't know that it's, had I not done this medicine and had I not been shown it in that way, I don't know that I couldn't have moved through it in a different way of accepting. But truly, I guess the whole point of the scene that I was shown and what happened after that was truly about me being able to see myself in my entirety, and all the aspects of my personality and all the aspects of myself, and not being afraid of myself, and not trying to rid myself of self, or that aspect of being, but to embrace it, to honor it, to love it, and truly love it, like truly respect it. And not, so much of the being at odds within ourselves is a story, a stereotype or narrative that we create on our own, or we create societally based, that we're going, okay, this is what it means to be a faithful partner or wife or mother or, friend, or, whatever your story is that you're, aligning with. It's just that. It's that we are dynamic human beings, and that we are complex, and there isn't, you can't deny or denounce that aspects, or those aspects of self. It's truly about like aligning with all the things and making peace with, and loving it so much that you're also able to see, the foundings of why you became in opposition with it in the first place. And somewhere along the line, it was like you were told, this isn't correct behavior, or you're too wild, or you're too free, or you're, too much. And somewhere along the line, you start to agree. And then that feeds that energy in a different way. It feeds it and gives it power. It's like, now it's created its own life, versus it being a part of you and you being like, I'm not too much, I am. Period.
Yeah.
It's this, suddenly you're going, oh, maybe I am this way. And then maybe I'm only allowed to be that way in the dark, or by myself, or, and then it's like this subtext that happens, that it's the thing we've talked about a million times over, people discuss in therapy. It's like, it's what we work so hard to overcome, this, you have to forgive yourself and forgive the people who did that, who told you that. And that might have been you, you know, it might have been just this inclination that you have, that you're like, this isn't how I'm supposed to be in the world. No, we still live in society. We still have to negotiate our day-to-day and our space. But like when we are in opposition with ourselves and feeling somehow wrong or bad, that, you know, again, like I said, that gives that wrong or bad power, and that creates a much bigger beast. Our society is meant truly to embrace everything. Like it's our ideas of what society are that, you know, I think kind of mess it all up. I mean, we still have, you know, like universal principles to agree upon. Like, I'm not going to murder somebody, or, you know, things that this medicine showed me were really about gratitude, about being cautious and precious with individuals and the people around us, and how gratitude extends to every individual, because we are, I mean, it truly showed me that we are all part of the same. We are all operative individually, but part of a bigger entity. Star energy. It's really how it was, I mean, I could go on and on how it was shown to me, but in order to, you know, come back to that oneness and that space, it's like you have to first forgive yourself, love yourself, and I mean truly every single bit of you, because it is all so necessary in order to then, you know, have that deep reverence and gratitude for everything and everyone around you. And you're no longer wanting to be destructive against self and against others. It's this, you know, the entire purpose of life is to come back into ourselves and stand in our full power so that we can do so and be beacons for everyone else.
I'm feeling all the feels right now, of course. You know, what I'm hearing from you is, it's the integration of all parts. So there's even a part of me, because I think I didn't know I was going to do this in this episode, but I think I'm going to keep going back to the space of what the medicine illuminated for you, but then sharing it in a way with people who maybe don't want to sit with ayahuasca, that could go, okay, how could they do some of this on their own? And so for me, it's almost coming up with, I don't know if you know this about me, I love lists. Like I love, and even, you know you love lists. Yes, that's the Virgo in me, type A, just like, but for somebody, but you know, even if you wanted to get artistic with it, because I really think you can tap into God consciousness when you're creative, and when you paint, and when you really get into flow. And for somebody to really honestly sit down with themselves, not even necessarily with a therapist or a healer, and go, what are the parts that I don't like to look at, right? What are the parts that I kind of love to tuck in the closet, and really I don't like in my own life. I've had periods, of course, of being mean, or I've lied, or I haven't been living in full integrity or authenticity. And so I think it's interesting as you're talking, I'm having this little like zing moment of, really being able to look at those and then again, hold them, but not in the frame of the mind. Hold them in your heart and really,
That's the thing that, okay, I will say the reason that I went to sit with this medicine is because I was blocking my own self, and I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel those things anymore. And so I will say, you know, and I wish I had kind of started with this, but when I was shown my spirit, I then had to be shown myself. I had to be shown my body. And she showed me my own heart. And my heart had this like calcified chicken skin around it, and showed it to me very blatantly, like, there's your heart. And it just looked like this, it just, like I said, like a hardened chicken skin. And I just burst into tears going, why would I do that to myself? Like, how? And then having immense compassion for myself that, like, whoa, I've been so hurt, or I've felt so much pain that I chose to hold all of my heart energy encased in this thing so nothing could touch it. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to feel it anymore, or feel anything. And this medicine made me, I will say, the grandmother, make a choice. Like, is this how I want to live? Do I want to feel, or do I want to be in this encaged thing? And of course, I'm going, well, that sucks. I don't want that on my heart. But like, handed me a scalpel. I had to literally go in and like cut open this chicken skin. And as I did it, my heart just like exploded open, and everything came out. Like all of these emotions and feelings and all the weight that I'd been carrying, and all the like, and it was like this, it was like rapid fire, everything that you could, I don't know, it was just shown so quickly that, but it was like old hurts, old pain, like minor, really not that big of a deal things, but down to like the biggest things, the things that like, cause you really hurt, really shut down. And it was just, it was like an outpouring. And then I had to, really, it was like feeling for the first time. Mm. Now, I don't know how to articulate what I saw or what I felt or what I experienced. And I again, we've discussed it many times. I don't think that the medicine is necessary for people to, heal their hearts or clear, their minds in order to do so. I just know that, for some reason I was really drawn to that. And I was shown things that I couldn't otherwise explain. Mm-hmm. I can't explain why I was shown it that way, but I can explain that, like, I 100% felt different coming out of that experience. Mm-hmm. Like, my body felt different. My soul felt different. And my heart, like, I hadn't cried in years. Not really. Like, I can cry at commercials, like Pamper commercials. Give me a break. I can cry at like things like that. But if it was really about something in my life, like my experience, just shut down. Mm-hmm. And suddenly it was just like the floodgates had opened. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this was a daytime ceremony. I'm pretty sure I like hysterically sobbed for a few hours. Just and
that's what Honey thinks about that.
That's what Honey thinks about that. And it's, I don't know. I feel like we got a little off track because, we were kind of discussing the factor that how do people, get to that place of being in your heart? Mm-hmm. And I think I told that story because I didn't know how shut down my heart was. And I don't know. I don't know how I would have discovered that otherwise. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
yeah. I guess, well, I'm going to share a personal anecdote because I shared this with you via text yesterday, but so I was meditating and I was in a deep meditative state. I was there for like probably over an hour, and I felt what happened to me at actually the Joe Dispenza event, where it felt like I wasn't in my body anymore, that I had connected to spirit. And so I felt this vibrating from the lower part of my sacral area, working its way up and up into the top of my head and then back down. And I was sitting there, and for a moment I got super overwhelmed, and I went, whew, you know, and it was like this really but beautiful energy. And I just felt this outpouring of love. I felt this outpouring of love to Jonas, to friends, to, to myself ultimately. And I didn't expect to share this with you in this episode, but, and then I got the message, which was, you don't need it, Gina. And I went, like, what? And I just, yeah. So for those of you listening, because I'm just sharing this with Lee right now, love how Lee and I get into flow together. So I have been prepping myself for an ayahuasca ceremony, and Lee has known that I've worked through a lot of fear, fear of losing my mind. And then Lee started laughing and said, you will lose your mind. Like that's part of it, right? And the dismantling of the ego and and so I've gone through these deconstructive spaces. I would say it's been about 2.5 weeks. I've already started the dieta and, so no caffeine, no alcohol. And I've been meditating like a motherfucker, an hour sit in the morning, an hour sit in the evening. And I felt this crack. I mean, I didn't hear sounds like you did, and then it was just this profound inner knowing of my power. And I was like, whoa. And I remember, and I came out of the room, and even Jonas looked at me. He was like, Gina's on fucking drugs. I came out and I was just like tears streaming down my face, just going like, whoa, I love you. And I love Lou. And it was this. And so it was really interesting because to our point, I think, God, I'm feeling so many things in my heart right now. Medicine comes in all forms. And I really think coming off of the last episode with you, your heart was blocked. You really were just like, my heart is blocked. I'm in a state of confusion. We even kind of talked about a state of dissociation, like where you're like, I just hear white noise. Like I if I get triggered, I go into this space that I can't. But the medicine cracked that open for you. But I
think you're right, though. I think what the medicine also showed me was there is no quick fix. This is all hey, welcome to the picture show of this is information. I'm going to give it to you now. It's like OPB. Present it. And it is entirely up to you, the individual, to implement this into your life, to take heed, to listen, to continue to practice, to feel. And I remember on the last podcast, we were really kind of discussing the factor that I need to retrain that word, but I had a real hard time with daily practice, with, self-love, because baby girl, I wasn't there. I thought I did. I thought I was like, I love myself. I really like myself. I do like myself. I really did. But I wasn't loving all the parts of myself. I was loving the good parts of myself. I wasn't loving the hard parts of myself. I wasn't giving myself compassion and being my own source of, strength and healing. Truly, I was disassociated from it. And that's when that white noise would happen, when I would go into that space of like, it just felt like a divide. And we can't be divided. We have to be in our entirety, every aspect of it, and without fear. Because, I don't know, my girlfriend Casey, Casey?
Yeah.
Casey and I were talking the other day, and she was talking about another mutual friend of ours who's in New York, and she's just like, what I love about him is he just says whatever the hell he wants, And I was like, yeah, that's cool, I guess. What? I don't know. I was sitting here thinking like, well,
maybe
feelings and da-da-da. But the reality of this is, if you're in your consciousness, the things that you're saying aren't to be hurtful. It's not about, intentionally hurting people, but it's also aligning with truth and aligning with, what is real. And if you feel something truly and somebody's feelings are hurt by what you truly feel, it's not necessarily an intentional hurt. It's just about aligning with your own truth. And maybe those relationships fall to the wayside and maybe that isn't where you're supposed to be. And then next thing you know, you're just flowing, man. Like everything in your life is lining with truth because you've committed to it. That commitment, that's the daily practice.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to, I will say as soon as I came out of ceremony, it just came at me tenfold. It's like, oh, you think this is easy? Check it out. I'm giving you every hard thing you could possibly imagine. See how you're doing with that. How's your daily practice now? How's your self-compassion now? And I'm not gonna lie, it's been challenging. And this is where I really truly don't believe that it's not the medicine.
Yeah.
It's what the medicine can tell you and show you. Again, it's profound. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. For me, it was life-changing. But it is truly the subtlety of your day-to-day and your attention and awareness, like coming back, like mindfulness, breath, all those things. And I'm still struggling.
Yeah.
I have a hard time sitting and, waking up and having intention and gratitude first thing in the morning. I have a hard time, sitting before every meal and going, hey, I am appreciative of the farmers who brew these vegetables, and I'm appreciative of the people who harvest them and what it took to bring them here to my home and into my plate and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, such a necessary component. It's another big thing that grandmother showed me was how we are just a whole bunch of unruly children running around on her face.
Yeah.
Reaping.
Yeah.
Instead of really appreciating that she is the mother, like that is, I mean, we breathe her air, we drink her water, we eat her food. This is our entire necessity is based off of this planet. And we are just not giving a shit.
Not giving a shit. Yeah.
Truly. It's like even when we think we give a shit, we still don't really comprehend how much we are taking, how much we are.
Well, if we really gave a shit, I mean, I was talking about this with Jonas the other night. There's enough clothes in this world. We don't need to be producing more clothes. We don't need to be producing more shit. And there's such a disconnect because of greed and because of our insatiable appetite for power and for things and materialism. And
not just all of it. I mean, for example, and I don't want to get too far off the subject.
Yeah.
We went pumpkin picking the other day and got a whole bunch of beautiful pumpkins and brought them home and arranged them on our porch. We were like, oh, look at how fall oriented we are. And I was looking at these pumpkins and I'm like, we don't have any intention of eating this pumpkin. And this is food. And there are people in the world that are starving. And I just went and bought a whole bunch of things that I thought were pretty to put outside of my house. And it's going to rot. Yeah. And there's some child on the other side, probably, of town that, I mean, I don't know if they want a pumpkin.
But but they want food.
And there was, thousands of people flocking to buy these pumpkins. And there's the experience of fall, pumpkin patch. And just our focus, what we find joy in, what I've been finding joy in. I mean, it's just making me stop and go, whoa, what am I doing? There's so much unconsciousness in every aspect of my life. And it is really challenging to start to dismantle because you have to start it's painful. It doesn't feel good. Yeah. It's like I live in a very comfortable home. I have a lot of nice things. I continue to acquire things, and I need nothing. It's just, yeah. I mean, there's a balance, but man.
There's a balance, but I do believe, I'm going to be very careful when I say this because I know how charged the coronavirus is. But for me, it's quite symbolic. It's incredibly symbolic that we have this virus that is really going to show us and has shown us. And this is not to take away from anybody who's lost somebody or has grieved somebody who's died from COVID, but it's shown us a few things, which I think is the power of going inside internally to ourselves, slowing down, taking a breath, really reevaluating what am I doing with my life? How am I contributing to my family, myself, the world? There's been an unprecedented amount of people who've quit their jobs. And unfortunately, so many people who've lost their jobs. But I really do believe, and a lot of people don't like this term, but I do feel that we are in a great reset. And when I say great, it's not even, I don't even want to use that word. It's more alignment. We have to come into alignment with, and again, I think there's a spiritual lack collectively and believing that we are truly connected to source energy, that we are truly connected to one another. Because if we really believe that, we wouldn't be as polarized and as damning as we are. I mean, I know so many people right now who are not talking because of the vaccine, and I don't even want to go into all of that stuff because it's,
really, really what you and I had discussed before is that divide. And something that just came up for me was, when sitting with that medicine, it showed me so many different things, but it truly showed me a lot of my interpersonal relationships, because we go out so far, which you and I just did really quickly. It's like, you can look at the greater good and how we are interacting our day-to-day lives within our world and how we're impacting that. But then, when you come down to like the smaller aspects of life and like our nuclear families and how our interpersonal relationships are operating. And truly, I think, I saw it like the world underneath the ground, like an ant farm or something that's like, there's so much happening inside things that we don't know about. So we can look at things from the outside perspective and it can look a certain way. And you can be doing a lot of impactful work on the outside, and you might not be doing that on the inside where it really, really counts. And that can simply be, within your relationship with your partner, your relationship with your children, your relationship with your aunts and uncles, or whoever's, there's something in every single aspect of our existence that has to be healed. And I think, we talk about doing this like internal work and this internal healing, but it's so easy when we're by ourselves or when we're like, in a group of like-minded people. And it's extremely challenging when you're with a family member who doesn't agree, or a close friend maybe who has different opinions. And you're going, if you just saw my perspective, or if I could just compassionately show you mine, and it's not, that's the work. That's the real work. It's this coming back in. Everything is truly back in the like healing of our own self, even when we think we're healing aspects of ourselves, like you said, coming out of that deep meditation and just having immense love for everyone. Do you feel when you come out of that space, it's like, and maybe I'll say when I come out of a space like that, there's like neutrality. I feel this,
Yes.
I can see it all. I can see the good, the bad, the hard, the painful, the pleasurable, the joyful, and neither seem better than the other, that there's just, it is, that just all of it is. And if we are meant to learn through our interpersonal experiences and then collective experiences and so on, it's like the finding the peace, the finding the strength, the finding the individual surrender to that truly, I think, is the basis for like healing the bigger outside. But you can do small things or big things to heal the bigger outside, but it's like until you truly look at your everything in your individual, you know, it won't matter.
Yeah.
Again, I think truly the whole reason we're all here is to come back to ourselves and then be able to show that to the world, to everyone, to, you know, impart that compassion. And again, it's like meditating for 2 hours a day is great. Not everybody has the time.
No. I realize it's a major luxury.
Well, I don't think we don't need to classify it like luxury. I think it's a choice and a decision. Like I know a lot of people who 2 hours a day on Instagram. Like it's not, you know, it's not like we all have luxuries in our life.
Yeah.
But it's a conscious choice. And, you know, it's like not everybody has the availability to go do ayahuasca. You know, there's a lot of components that have to kind of go into that to put yourself in a, you know, it's like going on a 10-day silent retreat. Like there's a commitment to these things. And even when you come out of it, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's like every single day, it doesn't stop. It'll never stop. It'll always be a commitment every single day. I didn't want to hear that. I was like, I'm going to continue being rebellious sometimes. And that's okay too, because we will.
Yeah.
But the more we continue to commit and hold each other accountable to that commitment, the easier it becomes, the more joyful it becomes, the more, you know, the truth aligns and the things start to fall by the wayside and things become more important than other things.
Well, it's so interesting because as I've been quote unquote prepping, you know, for ceremony, my intentionality, and I think I've said this to you, I don't think in my life I have ever been so intentional about looking at the food that I put in my mouth, and not in like a crazy way, but just food is medicine. And I'm not going into the world of clean eating and all of that, but just, you know, my relationship to plants and my relationship to breath and my relationship to compassion. And and I just, so even recently I was on this long hike, and I saw these two women in front of me and I went into a judgment space. There was immediately like the outfits that they were wearing, and I paused and I went, wow, Gina, wow. You know, like that's not very loving. And what is it about them that you're already going into this space? But I'm noticing this, it might sound intense to people listening to this, but I'm noticing this kind of breakdown of my days of everything to the point of, you know, Jonas has talked about how he's noticed this deep softening in me because when I notice these old habitual spaces of, I'm going to say this thing because I'm not happy with this thing right now, but it's not going to be conscious and kind. And so, slowing myself down enough, and again, feeling so much gratitude and appreciation that has like accelerated because, I think there's also been, as I've talked to you, that fear of what if I come back from this and I'm not the same, or I lose my mind, blah, blah, blah.
So that's what I wanted to, I almost interrupted you a minute ago.
Yeah.
That's what I find so interesting about this commitment to self. It's a commitment to healing based off of the fear of the unknown.
Yes.
And the difference though, Gina, the shift, I think, like you say, when you're meditating, and the shift that has to happen in your own being is that shift of knowing that it is available to you, and that this is a pathway that gets you there. and that the intention behind it is truly simply for the betterment of self. That it's not about, I have to hold myself to this standard because of. It's that I can hold myself to the standard, period.
Yes.
And then it can keep evolving.
Yes.
And it's that we're doing this for ourselves. I mean, it's like so much of my, and I'm not going to lie, I'm a habitual person. Like I am. I love wine. I like to smoke. I like all sorts of things that are really.
I was going to ask you if you have smoked after she showed you your lungs.
My lungs. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
And it's a lot of, again, it's that daily awareness. This is, again, this is what's so tricky about perpetual evolution of self is that, every day we have a choice and we have the ability to be conscious. And, I was getting back into this really great way of like, because there's a lot of tobacco involved in
ceremony,
in ayahuasca and ceremony, and it's medicinal tobacco. It's prayer. It's used for prayer. It's used for intention. And they talk about how tobacco was the first medicine, and tobacco actually told man about the ayahuasca, about the plant medicine. So it's spirit talking to, all plants are spirit. That spirit told the man about this spirit, which I saw it as an alien plant. I also, I'm getting way off topic, but
no.
Yeah.
Go with it.
I also saw her as somebody I had met many times before in many different lifetimes. That I had worked with that medicine before, and that was really cool. It was like meeting an old friend, but an old like guide. I don't know.
So in some ways now having a smoke connects you to that space of.
No, that's me totally disregarding the beauty of that plant medicine. It's but also there's a lot of sitting down instead, taking a breath, taking time. It for me that smoking had become sort of that. It's maybe something I need to reevaluate truly in a different way. But what I was shown is how we abuse things when you use things in an intentional way. I mean, there's so many beautiful plant medicines out there. There's so many beautiful spirits to connect to. I think it's about reverence. I think it's about intention. No, I have not always been intentional with that, but I really do have an awareness that like everything has, everything has spirit. And so you when you are intentional with things, it's truly the only way to operate. And in doing so, it's, it's the unconscious, it's the abuse of things that cause us to hurt, to become sick, to, I don't know, you and I talked a lot about alcohol and how alcohol is a spirit, how it, but they call it spirits. It's like lowers your vibrational frequency. And finding a relationship with that. Like, when is it ever really good to lower your vibrational frequency? When is it ever good to like wake up feeling unclear or clouded or angry or, how often have I woken up hungover and then that energy is then put out into the world?
Oh yeah.
That like, irritable, clouded, lazy, energy that's, again, it's like, it's just us. We're the only ones that are ever going to hold us accountable. And, there's this idea that there's some big judgment out there, and there's not. It's us. We are the judgment. We are here to heal ourselves, to grow, and to learn to respect, learn gratitude, learn passion. And that, the only reason why we hurt ourselves or are habitual with things or is a lack of compassion for self. Or maybe something we don't want to look at.
Oh, I mean, I know for me, my 40th birthday was a great example. After going through some uncomfortable feelings and a lot of things coming up for me that weekend with seeing old family, friends. I'm not going to go into the specifics right now, but yeah, I mean, I had thought that I had established a more mindful relationship with alcohol, and then come that day, I was overwhelmed by feelings, and I was like, oh yeah, beer me, and it was so amazing how quick I went into a space of being unconscious and kind of, and not allowing myself to just feel the discomfort, which is something that and again, this goes back to the previous episode with you and I, which is kind of all of what we were asking each other is, all these different tools and all of this seeking versus sometimes just really being with, right? And I think what I've learned in these last 2.5 weeks is I'm slowing myself down enough to feel the fear that the incarnation of Gina Minardi carries. And, and maybe that has carried from other lifetimes or from this lifetime. And, my relationship to booze, and, I eat a lot of comfort food and things that I know are not good for my hormones. And so zoning in, and it's not to feel like this like military discipline with myself, but I don't think I've ever, I mean, I'm saying this truthfully to you, in these last 2.5 weeks, I've never made such loving choices for myself.
I love that.
Yeah. And and I'm human. So, it's been.
Well, so much of it is setting yourself up for success. And as you were talking about your birthday, and I was just thinking how, like, I met you on your 21st birthday. I know, I love birthdays as much as you love birthdays. And this idea behind it, that's also an old story.
Yeah.
It's a story of like, this is what it means to be this way. And this is like, on this day, I get to fly that freak flag, and I'm going to like have, all the things and have the fun times. And then I'm like, how many times am I going to do that before I remember? It doesn't feel good. I like it.
Yeah.
But I haven't let go of a story or something. So there's this like, I'm really interested in the like how to set yourself up more so. You did a podcast a while ago with what is the girl's name? You guys talked about conservation and
Bonnie, right?
And and not having to do like such a big thing and commit to the biggest, like all of it, and not having to feel like a small bit was not good enough, or you couldn't talk about it, or you couldn't, And I think that applies literally to everything in life.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to preach of, being the best, or, and you can fall off, and you can fall down, and you can fuck up. And I don't even know if it is fucking up, because the second we look at it as that, and there's an attachment to it. And that's where I come back to this, like, loving your entire self and looking at like, what is that old story? Where did that originate? Why do I feel that way? Everything comes back to that mindfulness. And then it's like slowly setting yourself up for success. So it's not necessarily saying, I'm not going to do that again. You might. Yeah. 70 might be epic.
Yeah.
In market proportions. Or it could be totally different.
Yeah.
And it's just that where are we setting like new pathways, like really truly creating these like new lines where you, like you said, you stop, you breathe, you consider, you're being mindful in your daily go around. Like I can relate to that so much. And just like, even within, my home, like I said, I'm great by myself. And then you put my partner in, which that's a whole other side of ayahuasca that we haven't even gotten to yet, that, showed me so much of what it means to be a partner, what it means to hold space. And when you truly step into your own power and love yourself, what that opens up for what you're capable of doing with others. But you know, all that lovey-gushy stuff, and then you're living with somebody and you're like, oh my God, you know, you didn't, whatever it is, you know, the daily things, they aren't even that irritating, but we find, you know, it's not about specific people things. It's about the fact that we will always have things. There will always be something with someone, with something of your day. Somebody cut you off while you were driving. And like the pure, like, instead of getting angry and just sending love, like, wow, they must really need to get somewhere quickly. Go ahead. You know, it's like, there is something, you know, acknowledging that unconsciousness and then double downing on your consciousness, because that's the only way to maintain that level of clear-mindedness that is, you know, staying in your heart. Like when you can have that open heart space and not be like,
yeah, I mean, this is a totally silly example, but I actually came home to Jonas. I don't think it's silly, but I was surfing this morning and waves look kind of like sloppy, big. I was like, my girlfriend or my friend Carly, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to go. And this man next to me goes, like, I always go surf, even when there's waves. And it was like this weird, and I could have just taken it as a little bit mansplainy. I have a sensitivity to that. And then I went, you know, and I don't even remember what I said, but it was just, I felt myself wanting to get defensive as to why, like, I don't need you, bud, to tell me to go surf because there's waves, but I didn't. And I just, you know, it was a pause and noticing, and I think it's always fine tuning, coming back to going, I don't need to react. The pause is key because we don't need to be the ripple effect of more reactivity in the world and more kind of like ego defensiveness, which I think,
I don't know. I will say though, coming out after ayahuasca, after having, you know, I say this in truth that, like, you know, I probably had one of my most reactive experiences post ayahuasca, having, and like, felt it throughout my whole body, like felt myself, you know, I'd gotten into an argument with my partner and like, I felt myself like filled with rage. It was this crazy, overwhelming, like, experience. And I it was familiar, and the origin of it made a lot of sense to me because I was, you know, in my mind, I thought I was like being fiercely protective of my children. And I understand that, like, you know, again, with that medicine, being shown how I had wanted to be so fiercely protected as a child. And so recognizing it, seeing it, but it is the pause, it's the stop, it's the, I didn't, you know, I didn't do that. And we have since had to have many challenging conversations around it. You know, reacting to reaction, reacting, period, is not, I mean, it doesn't, a reaction more often than not comes from an old, not an old space.
Oh, yeah.
And
an old
that
story.
is, you know, the biggest, I think my biggest work is really looking at where I go when I feel reactive, what's triggering my reactivity, and the source of where that is in my body, and learning how to soften. Like, you know, we've discussed this so much, and this was, you know, again, something I sat with in the medicine of, like, learning where, you know, why I was so defensive and why I am so tough and so hard. And, you know, underneath that big, scary defensiveness, you know, my big masculine energy, which I'm not putting it as a negative, just like my protective barrier around self. It was, you know, again, you're like protecting yourself from yourself. You're protecting yourself from your own looking at what that origin of pain truly is. And it'll happen. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen in your life, and you're going to have, it's how do we work through that? Mm-hmm. Who's willing to work through that with us? Mm-hmm. Are they willing to look at those wounds too? Mm-hmm. Are we all willing? I mean, fucking transparency, man. It's not, it's crazy. You come out of something as profound as ayahuasca, and it's like, it all makes sense. There's no judgment. Mm-hmm. And then you come out and you come back into your life and you're like, well, but this person still has judgment, and this person, there's like, and but I just want to be compassionate and loving, and I don't want to hurt anybody. But then it's not up to us to hold that space, mm-hmm. to hold, I'm not being very clear.
No, you're being clear. Sorry, did you want to finish that thought?
Well, no, I just think it's not up to us to, to define what is, good and bad for other people. And it is up to us to control our own reactivity. Mm-hmm. It's up to us to sit with other people's pain too. Yeah. And that's not meaning that it has to be your pain. But I think compassion truly means being able to witness it and sit within that discomfort. Mm-hmm. That was something that I would definitely have, I have learned a lot about myself. And I struggle so much with other people's discomfort with me, not with them, not with other things. When they have discomfort with me, mm-hmm. I'm like, no. Yeah. God, no. And I think what I really learned is shame. Mm-hmm. And feeling shame. Mm-hmm. It's all in our own consciousness, our psyche. It's, we create it. And we create the levels of it. Mm-hmm. Like some people, and that was something that was, okay, so in that ceremony, I had to do this like body scan and go through in my body where I was holding pain and where I was holding shame or like, things I had forgotten and having to look at it. And some of it was like really trifle bullshit. Like, what I would now think is bullshit. Mm-hmm. But in my early 20s or back in my teens, I like held these small hurts. And I had to like forgive myself and then forgive them. And everything was learning the subtlety of like compassion. It was like turn that pain into healing and transmute that into love. Mm-hmm. Everything. There was no bigger lesson that I was shown, that every hurt can be transmuted into love, every single one, and forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which that's a hard one for, I think, most humans, especially those who come from, really heavy, gnarly trauma and abuse to transmute that pain into love, or at least over the years, as I've worked with people, that it's one of the hardest things to, but it's not something, I definitely don't disagree with it, because I think operating from the heart and stepping into the heart and healing that pain is ultimately, it's liberation for yourself.
Well, when you look at it, this is the like going out however many phases that you'd have to go. But when you look at like, if you can conceive that we are all made up of the same, we all are individual, slices of the same big pie, and that we came here, with little bits of like chocolate, and there's some marionberry, and there's some lemon over here, and some key lime, and we don't want it to mesh. You want to be able to taste all the individual flavors, but that pie has to be baked in one big pan, and that's it. Like, we're all, it's the same pie. You might cut open a slice and it could have 4 different flavors in it, and that's cool, and it might taste good, it might taste bad, but it's still the same fucking pie. And you look at that in like a family dynamic of, we all have these complexities in our individual selves and our individual experiences, and no matter what happened to you or I don't know if I'm losing the pie scenario, but I'm going to just say, like, in our family dynamics, as much as we are, angry or hurt or affected by, what trauma has incurred. And a lot of the time it is from, family lineage, family, how you were raised, how you were cared for, what happened to you as a smaller person. And this could be completely outside of a family too. I mean, abuse comes in all different ways. But one thing I am pretty certain of is abuse is learned. It's not just something that somebody one day decides. I think it's something that has been imparted. Something gets a little tweaky in there. That was the case for me. Having experienced abuse, I was perpetuating my own abuse. And I wasn't, imparting it on my family members as much as I was imparting it on myself. I was creating the same experience for myself over and over and over with this idea that it was different. And truly, I was just swimming in the same pie. I'm like, and until I could see it for what it was and have compassion for it and forgiveness for it and know that, like, it is also me, that abuse in some weird way, and I'm sure there will be people who don't agree with this, but if you can just take a minute to conceive that abuse can also be a huge gift, that abuse can provide you information that allows your depth of capacity of compassion to expand so exponentially that there's no way otherwise. If you can look at it in that manner, just as a concept, not that you have to own it, not that that has to belong to anybody, but that conceptually that may exist, and expand your mind to that and know that if you have experienced the most treacherous pain, whatever, and it's not even if you have, because everyone will experience their most treacherous pain. That's inescapable. But if you can view that pain as the ultimate gift and the platform that or the pathway that allows you to kind of experience that ultimate joy, because you won't know one without the other. It's not possible. And not to say, and everybody will have their own experience, not to say that one person's is more extreme than the other. Like, Ross and I were just talking about how, his life experiences and like what was really traumatic for him as a child and caused a lot of, upset for him. For me, it didn't seem to measure to what happened to me as a child and cause upset for me, but it absolutely does. It is 100% the same. It's just the gift of the fractal, our sides of the pie. Like I wanted this portion of the pie and he got maybe this portion of the pie. And that was the spectrum of, he's still part of the same pie. We are all part of the same big damn thing. It's just having to, and once you see that, once you can really conceive that we are all experiencing to some degree at every moment, all the time, it's like, it isn't about us by ourselves. It's like, we are all, going through these things. And then you no longer have to carry this, like, what happened to me was so intense. It's like, fuck yeah. And that means now you have that much more room, truly, when you really allow yourself to forgive whatever happened to you, forgive yourself for whatever happened to you. And I mean, like, surrender yourself to it, go into it, you don't have to sit with the, like, memory of, you don't have to, like, just to acknowledge, like, my God, look at my being. Look what I fucking went through. Look at how capable I am. If I can survive that, I mean, I can survive anything. And you can. And then if I can forgive that, I can forgive anything. And you can. And if I can love that, I can love that part of me that hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can love the person that hurt me, and I really mean it, like, I know that sounds fucked up, but like, when you can bring that compassion into that space, it just is like,
Yeah.
rocket ships, man.
Rocket ships. Yeah. I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh, he has a book that's titled No Mud, No Lotus. And it's essentially, you know, we can't understand, or not even understand, we can't experience the joy and the breadth of life without degrees of suffering and pain. It's part of being human. It's part of our incarnation. But I remember Danielle Laporte, quoting all these humans, once said that she was like, it's important for people to know that we can't necessarily see the gift within a certain timeline, right? So this is her feelings towards it, that, you know, she's like, I hate it if I go through something intense or traumatic and somebody says, well, there's a gift in this pain, or there's a gift in this lesson. But that over time, and this is for each of us individually, that if we are open to seeing the gift from it, that can come.
I think it's just that. It's not that there's, and again, the whole reason we kind of started talking was because of that medicine. For me, it was like I was tired in my own being of holding on to shit that I knew I was holding on to, blocking shit that I knew I was intentionally blocking because I didn't want to let go. I didn't want to really truly surrender to whatever that is, because I also had attachments to it. And when we started this, I started kind of talking about her making me see my attachments and or gifting that view, and knowing that, you know, it's not just like, I mean, it can be anything. You can be attached to fucking anything, everything. It's that our job truly is to relinquish this idea that we have any control. And attachments is just that. It's like, I'm going to hold on to my pain because I have control over it. Because if I can hold on to it, nobody else can hurt me. You can't hurt me. I've already been hurt.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. Yeah. And if you keep trying to hold on, you become attached to that space too. And then it's just like, you're going to keep hurting yourself. And I was doing that. That's where I really was able to, I mean, I think, sit and go, wow, I'm not being loving to myself by holding these attachments. I am protecting myself from myself. It's such an odd concept.
But it's so true. It's,
I had to really unpeel the corners of my mind to get to that place. And I'm sure this might sound, you know, like a far-fetched situation too, but like when you really look at going, you know, like you think you're protecting yourself. What are you protecting yourself from? And I mean, you have to really go like, you understand, you have to let go of everything to know. And I mean, and this is what, like, I hate to say it, but like, oh, Buddhism is based off of religion in general. But when you really get that concept of going, okay, like, you know, we were reading Paramahansa Yogananda on a drive the other day. It was just great.
Yeah.
And this is not something we do all the time, by the way. It's not like we just sit around and read.
I was like, I do, so.
I mean, we time. But, you know, just not to be unrelatable. There's, you know, there was this, you know, it talks about how the illusions and our, you know, this whole thing is an illusion. And that this monk had heard of a woman losing a child, and the monk was crying. And maybe I'm telling the story wrong, but this is the gist. And this other monk looks at him and goes, if you know there's an illusion, why are you crying? And he goes, because that is the greatest illusion of them all, the pain of losing a child. And it's not to say that we cannot, it's like when you have compassion, when you have that awareness, it's not to say that we won't have emotion, that we won't feel, that we're like, you know, you go into this like state. It's not that. It's that not holding on to it as if it's now yours. This didn't happen to me. This happened. And, you know, this this idea that we're so precious that nothing can happen, that we somehow, you know, if I just really protect my children and I ensure that they, you know, are home before dark and they eat the right foods and so on, nothing will ever happen to them. And then I think, how fucking boring for them that I've created a life where nothing will happen to them. And now I have to say, like we said before, we're raising human beings. These are people who are going to have experiences. Now, I hope that they have beautiful experiences, but I know that they're going to have painful ones too. And I hope that when they have those painful experiences, they can see it as a gift, transmute that into their capacity, so on.
I feel like that for me, Lee. I mean, you can tell me I feel like that almost like wraps us up to a degree.
I mean,
because that therein lies, which I think about this so much as a society, how scared and terrified we are to feel our pain. Which is why we're a society of heavy drinking, weed smoking, Netflix binging, clean eating, body obsession. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. All the things to not feel. And
man, I put some chicken skin around my heart so I didn't have to feel.
There you go. There you go.
It happens.
Yeah.
You're doing it. But we are meant to feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And to quote you, pain is the gift, right? And it's part of our evolution, and it's part of us going full circle back to what you got from ceremony is we're here to learn and we're here to heal and
here to heal ourselves. And we are here to heal each other.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this one thing down a little while ago. I want to just quickly share this with you.
Yeah.
And this was, let's see. Sorry, it was, I don't know if I'll find it. It's in my notes, and you know how that goes.
That's okay. You're going to find it.
It was about negative reinforcement.
Okay.
And self-reinforcing the negative experience in order to feel a high or feeling better. And that's something we kind of talked about last time. But again, and it's something we just covered, but truly, I think everything needs to be looked at as how are we attaching ourselves to it. That mind that truly it's just, you don't have to experience the bad over and over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go back into the negative to acknowledge the space or the gift.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it's, just the fact of like that practice of gratitude, that self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the getting there. Like you said, the meditating, it doesn't have to be that I have this spectrum of, I feel my pain in order to feel the good. It truly is just like the more positive, the higher frequency, the more time spent in that is everything.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. And really, I mean, as it's just become so clear to me in this short amount of time, really, really, we're probably being redundant to those listening, but it's a daily, like each day. And that's what's been so cool for me on this journey has really been like, what am I putting in? I'm saying the same shit, but what am I putting in my mouth? What am I drinking? What is this caffeine? I'm already a high energy addled person. Why have I been drinking caffeine for the last 40 years? Not 40 years, but that would have been me drinking coffee at infancy. But, but these things that they're habitual, we're addicted, we feel like we can't live without them. And I'm just speaking for myself personally. And also, why couldn't I sit for an hour before? I have the time. I'm a freelance worker. I create but I had to make specific choices, like social media is not part of my life.
That was slow. It is quite literally slow and steady.
Yeah.
And not like, don't stop the judgment of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't fall off the wagon. You just had you had a drink, you had a whatever. You didn't I don't like that I'm an alcoholic or I am a, when you're identifying with something, you are implementing that back. You're reiterating it to yourself. You are not that. You are, period, in this moment. And in this moment, you can make a choice, whatever one you want. And in the next moment, you can do the same. And if that choice is to shoot up heroin, then after that, maybe look at it and go, now I have another choice. It's the attachments to, the origin of, the, compassion of self in everything, in every moment, for sure.
So now I have I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I just said I'm still learning. I'll forever be learning.
Last question. This is probably a big question, but you're going back to do ceremony.
Going back to do ceremony, and I'm going back to do ceremony with my partner, with Ross.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that is because, like I said, everything that came up post, a lot of my issues that I had created in my life, you can look at them in subtlety and go, oh, I see how I've done this, but that doesn't mean that they didn't affect other people. And, in our quest to sort of grow together, heal together, I think that this is a really beautiful way in order, for us to sort of sit. I kind of look at it like 100 sessions of therapy. You go in and it's just, giving you some real insight. Again, not to say that you have to, but that was another takeaway from that medicine for me was it's maintenance. It's not a fix. And it's like getting a big shovel and going inside your cave and let me scoop it out. And now we're going to go sit and do that together.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yes.
I'm not scared. I'm not afraid of what's in there. I am ready for all things.
We will bring on Ross next time.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, I think that would be a beautiful thing for you guys to talk after ceremony. And maybe, we can talk about this later. But thank you for coming on, Lee.
Oh, Gina, thank you.
I love you. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Hi, friends. If you have been enjoying Spaces Between, please take a moment to subscribe, and leaving a review is the cherry on top. Thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.